we're back in this empty nester in this beautiful home. And it was just kind of one Saturday afternoon. It was a beautiful day. Is this kind of just it? I just bought my house. It was just me and my wife.
Now you just sit here forever, right?
Yeah, we just sit here and do this for the next 50 years. Is that the plan? And text her back. She says, well, we didn't have a job for you. We were going to create something for you because you're that good. We just wanted to get you in here, and I think you should be here. So we've got, rental properties and other stuff going on now. And I wrote a book and all that stuff since then. Yeah.
All right, we're here. So I didn't prep for this at all today.
Me either.
I feel like I don't have to with you, though.
I know. We know each other. We're
for
good.
a while, right? So, yeah, how did we meet again? Do you remember how we met? Do you remember? I still remember.
So I do remember. It was at, what's the co-working space over in Addison?
It's right here down the street.
Yeah. Oh, my God. I forgot the name
Venture
of it.
X?
Venture X, yes. And it was actually
It's one of those like 1,000 cups or 5 million cups or a million cups or whatever.
Cups, yeah, 1 million cups. There you go. So you know more than me. I do remember the day we met, and I was looking for somebody to help me with video content, and then you popped up out of nowhere.
Yeah, so, I just remember being there, and I was like, this guy looks like a normal person. I'm gonna go talk to him. You go to these networking things, and there's just like there's a lot of interesting people.
Yes.
Yes. And I mean interesting, like in a not the best way.
Yeah.
Sorry, no offense to anybody.
Right.
But but it's always nice, when you go to a networking event and you're like, I can connect with one person really well instead of being like, I got to hand out 100 business cards.
Right. No, that was good. Yeah. And so much has come from all of that, right?
It's wild.
It's just been crazy. That was 2019 when we met.
2018, 2019. It's been like 5-6 years.
I know for sure it's 2019 because
was it?
I was just getting out into my full time like speaking and my book was out.
Oh, like early 2019.
Early
right?
2019.
Yeah.
It's probably around this time, 2019.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Wow. So like 5 years.
5 years, man.
I feel like it's only been like a year or two.
Yeah. It's been a lot.
It's been a long time. That's awesome.
We've been riding, and you've progressed quite a bit in your business, man.
I've been trying to.
Good job.
Been niching down more and more, and that's been the scary thing. Is I thought like I had to solve more people's problems and solve more of their problems. Mm-hmm. But I think what I've found is find a very specific person and solve their problems and find more people and solve those exact same problems.
There you go.
And then when it gets overwhelming, hire people who can help you solve those problems solve more of those problems. Instead of like, hey, website guy, I'm going to hire you to do websites now. Or hey, SEO guy, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
It's more like, all right, can I do this, what I'm doing now for 20 people, for 50 people, or for 30 people? And so what team can I build to help me solve more people's exact same problems?
Exactly.
That's been very helpful.
Yeah. Niching down and then duplicating yourself through that systems and maybe some people added to your team. So that's what it takes.
It's been an awesome journey. Yeah. Speaking of journeys, let's talk about yours. That's the whole point.
Sure. Okay. All right.
We're not here to talk about me. I'd love to hear just a lot more about your journey, personally, professionally. A lot of this we've already talked about. Over like we talked about like at old fashions at bars and stuff, which we got to do again soon.
Yes.
We've had a lot of these awesome conversations, and you're somebody that out of all people that I think I've worked with, you're probably the person that I've had the most interesting conversations with.
Okay, well,
it's really fun. It's really great, and it's been awesome getting to know you. So I'm going to kind of reopen a lot of those conversations that we've had in this conversation. So let's go back to the beginning, very beginning. You're from California, Oakland, right?
From the Bay Area, Oakland Bay Area.
Cool.
So yes. And I'm an OG, so I've been around for a while.
Well, you look like you're like 40 though. It's ridiculous. What are you like? What are you like 50?
I hit 50.
You just hit 50, right?
Hit 50 this year, man.
Yeah.
I mean,
you still look and act like you're like
sounds
40.
So weird to even say that, but it's
old.
I'm changing the way 50 looks.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll talk about that later. So
you don't look like a grandpa in any way, shape, or form. Like you look like you have like 5-year-old kids. I mean,
I got a 4-year-old granddaughter and a 2-year-old, almost 3-year-old grandson.
That's awesome.
It's beautiful.
That's awesome. It's awesome to get to be young, I think, and energetic, and you can still do fun things with them. You can take them around. You can take them out all day. You're not like old in a wheelchair.
I'm in good shape.
And you take care of yourself.
Works.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. So that's good.
It's got to be awesome.
But grew up in the Bay Area, single mom. My dad was in my life, but my mom was the one that raised me. My grandmother, they both raised me. I have 9 siblings, but I'm the only child from my mom.
Whoa. Wow.
That's a whole nother
That's a whole other interview.
Yeah. Mr. Johnson was very active, my dad there.
Busy
Mr.
guy.
Johnson was using his Johnson a lot, so yeah.
Busy guy in the Bay Area.
He was a bus driver, but anyway, we'll talk about him another time.
That's man. I'm already lining up all these episodes, the bus driver dad, all the different siblings. Oh, this is gonna be great.
So 1990, I moved to Atlanta, where my dad was, and his new family, his wife, and my two sisters. You were like
18, 20 at the time.
I was actually at that time I was 16.
Okay.
And it was my senior year of high school, so I was a year earlier. So I went to my senior year at 17.
Oh wow. Well, why did you?
Well, my mom, again, single mom, she just had to work, and during that time they didn't really check your birth certificates or whatever. So she threw me in school at 4 instead of 5, or at least
well, that worked out great for you. Yeah,
it worked out so perfect for me.
That's awesome.
So I get to Atlanta and I start kind of taking after my dad and start having kids all of a sudden. Go figure. So Atlanta was very life-changing for me because it's like, holy crap, it's all these beautiful black women and women of color and mixed women. It was like, this is crazy. And I'm 17. Didn't have as many controls on me as I did in California with my mom, and so kind of got out there wild. Within that first year, I got a daughter on the way.
Wow.
And I got accepted to Howard University. But I didn't go to Howard University. I had to stick around and have like 2 or 3 jobs.
Be a dad.
Be a dad, yeah. So that was the journey that started,
Wow.
Yeah.
What were those odd jobs that you had to kind of like figuring out life, supporting, a new kid? What jobs were you holding down?
So I was working at the post office. My dad was a postman, so he got me into the post office. But I also had a job at like Target doing sales or stocks or whatever I was doing. My brother-in-law, my sister's husband, he had a cleaning company. So I ended up cleaning Hooters, of all places, at night every night, which is actually the best job I had at that period of my time. Because it was like, I was getting pretty good money for just going in for 2-3 hours every night. I had to be there every night, though. So, like, wanting to party and do all that stuff, I had to shut that down. And 2 a.m., I'm over there cleaning floors and toilets at Hooters. Wow. And then I'm done by 4:30. And I can go and do my regular job, And so it was a pretty hectic time during my life. But
how long did you keep that routine for?
Probably about 3 years.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, I did that for 3 years, and there was a time where I got in trouble in '93. I let my auto insurance lapse, and I got stopped, and so my car got impounded, and I ended up going to like this detention center for a week to do my little community service or whatever.
Oh my gosh.
So I had to lie to my brother at first. Like, oh man, gotta go out of town. Whatever. And of course he knew, they knew me. My sister was like, bro, what's going on with you, man? So I got in trouble, so I'm not gonna be able to do the cleaning. So I actually had to take part of my pay to pay a buddy of mine to do the cleaning for that week, which was great for him because he ended up getting a little gig out of that that turned into, hey, you can do this for me a couple nights a week because, I want to take a couple nights off.
Yeah, because you need to,
some rest and sleep. And so anyway, that was pretty cool. I was doing pretty well with money, but, it was just like I didn't have any rules. I didn't have any structure. I didn't really know how to build anything.
Yeah, so it seems like you were really good at making the money and working.
Yes.
But you weren't really good at what to do with the money once you had it.
Exactly. Horrible with that. I was always waiting for the next money to come in. I just always broke. I'm feeding kids. Now, by 94, I got a son. So now I got 2 kids.
Yeah.
By 96, I had a third child.
Wow.
So, it was just crazy, man, at that time. But I always knew there was greatness in me, and, again, I was always able to find good paying opportunities. I just had to figure out how to manage the money over the time.
Yeah.
So, interesting.
So how did you go from, early 20s where you have all these responsibilities to, I guess something a little more stable, a little more consistent? What was that journey like for you? Like, did you hold down like those 3 jobs that you had, and then, how did you go into like a more professional career? So
I actually go back to my dad gave me this book around that time called Think and Grow Rich. But it's not the one with Napoleon Hill.
Okay.
It was called Think and Grow Rich, A Black Choice.
Oh,
so the
cool.
Napoleon Hill's team, before he died, gave the rights to Dr. Dennis Kimbrough, a professor at Clark University in Atlanta, to do a story on a lot of black people who had overcome adversity and to achieve success. The Oprah Winfrey's of the world, Jesse Owens. It was like hundreds of people in this book. So he gives me this book, And I instantly read through this book like within a couple of days. And then I just kept reading it over and over again. It just inspired me. So I was like, well, here I am in this great city. I got jobs. I'm healthy. Some of these people in this book had some really crazy, upbringings. Like even Oprah's stories. She was molested. She grew up in like
Mississippi, right?
Yeah, it was Mississippi, a wooden house, a bunch of kids around. It was just horrific situation.
So I guess compared to that, yours was fine.
Exactly, and that stuck in my mind. Like,
wow.
Well, if they can do it, then I can do better for myself.
That's awesome.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I started really working on personal development, reading more, like interviewing for jobs that were beyond what I thought I was at that time.
Oh, just to get that experience.
Exactly.
Wow.
So one weird night, I was out.
One weird night.
Yeah,
that's how they all start.
Night. That's a great book story, man. I'll write the next book about that. So 94, it was a summer night. I was in Atlanta. I'm living with my girlfriend. We were together. I got the son. And so I was out, and I was, to be honest with you, I was smoking weed. I was doing just crazy
doing
stuff.
Dumb
with my
early
money,
20s things, yep.
And I went on a little jungle gym or whatever on the side of the apartments. And it was 10 o'clock at night, so it's dark. I'm out here smoking. Anyway, I can tell the story now 30 years later.
Yeah, it's fine.
But this guy, a neighbor, just comes. He's like, yo, what you got going on, man? So we end up smoking. And somehow he tells me, bro, I just got this bonus for like $1,500. And to me, my mind was blown. I was like, bro, it takes me like 2 months to make $1,500.
So for you, that sounded like $15,000.
Yeah, it was like
crazy, right?
Like, what are you doing? It's like, I work at this call center. Like, I just do sales calls. And if you do a certain amount of sales, you get this bonus check. Like, bro, you gotta hook me up. So he's like, oh, no problem, man. The way you talk, you carry yourself well. I'll get you set up with an interview. A week later, I got the job.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm working at this company. And
is it like collections? Is it customer service? Cool.
It was collections, but like real light collections.
Okay.
Like, it wasn't hardcore stuff.
Like unpaid toll tags or unpaid.
It was actually a phone company. So
so unpaid
Southern
phone
Bell.
bills. Oh, okay.
Yeah, phone bills. Hey,
Atlanta, Southern Bell, yeah.
Yeah. So you're falling behind on your phone bill. You got to pay $50 by Friday or they're going to cut your phone off. That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so, like, it was my first office job. So
like dressing up, you're showing up. There's other professionals.
Bro, I had no money. So I went to like thrift stores and bought me a couple blazers.
Really?
And got them cleaned, got them, fitted for me and stuff, and just started showing up. And what I realized is on this bottom floor was where they had all us grunts, people just starting out. But I would see all these guys and ladies going up in the elevator, and they're looking nice and, bringing back big lunches from Applebee's and stuff. I'm like, man, what is going on, man? I'm eating McDonald's. Like, and so anyway, I stopped one of the guys one day. I was like, man, what's going on upstairs? He's like, oh, no, this is where you get your own queue. So they assign accounts to you. And, you can really make some bigger bucks.
Your mind is like.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, I got to get upstairs, man. So I said, well, how long does it take to get up there? He's like, usually about a year you can get upstairs. I'm like, nah, man, I got to shorten that window. And so I just started listening to other people and talking to the supervisors. Like, man, I really want to get up there. I think I can do it. You'll be impressed with me when I get up there. And within 6 months, I'm upstairs. I got my own queue.
Bringing Applebee's for lunch?
Yes, it was
That's
crazy.
Awesome.
So
and
that's how I kind of
that's so great too, how, you saw that and saw it as motivation. You saw it as like, I want to be them. And I don't know, the gall to even go up and ask them, like, how'd you get there?
Yeah.
Like, you had no shame, it seemed like.
Not at all.
In a good way.
I needed to get to that money. And
was the motivation like being a young dad? Was it like reading those books and seeing like I found my way up and like I need to do everything I can? What was the motivation behind sort of
one is
getting
just
into that
making
elevator?
sure I can get those kids fed and paying rent. And I also, the mom weren't in the greatest relationship. We were just kind of stuck together because we're young kids trying to raise a kid. And I was like, I don't know. There's got to be a better life than this. I don't like how I'm feeling. And I'm like 21, 22 years old. And so in the book, what really motivated me was that people were just continuing to progress by believing in themselves. And so I just had this confidence, almost an arrogance really, that I can, if they can do this, I can do this, right? And I think what really got me was seeing that first bonus check was maybe about $750 for me. And I was like, if they're making like double and triple this upstairs, then I got to get upstairs.
Wow.
It's just that motivation. And
what'd you do with that bonus money, that first one? Do you remember?
caught up on some bills that I was behind. I think it was my car.
Did you go celebrate a little bit?
I was like, nah, it wasn't no celebration. It was like, let me just pay these bills up, you know.
Which still feels great, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But within 6 months of that, now I'm kind of ahead on my bills. But, you know, I was saving a little bit, but I really wasn't saving. I was like 401k in it, but I wasn't really putting money aside.
Like investing it, putting aside, getting
I'm
it to work
buying
for
clothes,
you.
I'm
You're investing in yourself. You know?
Better cars. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't
It's investing in
myself.
yourself. Yeah.
Nothing of value, though. Just, you know, yeah.
Yeah. How long did you stay at that call center? You know, when you went upstairs, 6 months later, you got there. It was awesome. Life was getting better.
Yes.
You know, how long did you stay there?
I think I stayed there 2 years, but what I realized in that time was that I'm a great negotiator. I'm a great speaker. I have just like a demeanor. I'm a good leader. Like I was actually the one assigned to train the ones coming behind me.
Wow.
So I learned a lot about myself.
So there's all these
in that
lessons
window.
that you like life skills you picked up, and that was your college. It seemed like
that was my college
because you learned speaking, you learned negotiating, sales, leading teams.
Yep.
I mean, that's all stuff.
And I never stopped reading. Like I was just
And you kept
constantly
reading.
reading more and more books and going to little webinars back then. It wasn't seminars back then. It wasn't webinars. It was like seminars. I would just go to, they're doing this free thing on how to negotiate your salary. All right, I'm gonna go to that, you know, or how to negotiate bill payments with, you know, or whatever it was.
So you training and learning and growing and reading
and
and
stuff, man.
So you weren't settling.
I was not settling. And then so 2 years later, that company went through like a acquisition or something, and I said, well, you know, kind of, again, my arrogance, I'm like, oh, I should be getting paid this. And they're like, oh, okay, well, you know, so I wrote up this letter, gave it to them. I was like, oh, great, we'll review it. And it's like, well, look, you don't have to work here. I was like,
they said that?
Yeah, they're like, you don't have to work here, you know. It's like, cool. But by now, so that industry, so many people would come one place and then they end up at another place. So I knew people that were at other companies. They were speaking highly of me, like, yo, you got to get this guy. He's good on the phones. He's good with negotiating. So my next job, I actually made probably 15, 20% more than I was getting paid. The money I was looking for, I got double that at this next company I went to. And I'm a supervisor now, you know, so
people under you.
I got people under me. I'm still on the phone, so I can still make bonus money and stuff like that, but I'm training other people. And that company went through some weirdness 2 or 3 years later. So the next company, I'm at a whole nother level. So I'm like double the salary now.
Wow.
I'm
what are we like
developing.
mid, late 90s now, early 2000s?
So yeah, now we're like, you know, 98, 99.
Okay.
And I'm making, you know, I probably started that whole journey at, you know, 30 grand a year, and then 40, and then now I'm at like 65, 70. So I'm like, okay.
Like back then, that was like over 100K already.
Yeah,
and no college
money.
either. That's amazing.
No
and you're like
college
in
at
your
all.
mid-20s?
Yeah,
mid to late 20s? That's pretty great.
It was good times, man. So, you know, and by now, me and the girl are broken up, but I'm still a dad. I'm an active dad, but I got my own place. So I'm a bachelor, you know, that whole thing. And
wow.
So, yeah, it was just kind of a weird time, but it was a fun time. Very fun time. That was my college time.
That was your college. That was your college, yeah.
Exactly.
Man, that's awesome. And so so you're doing that in your late 20s, mid to late 20s. You know, you're learning a lot, you're growing, you're personally developing. I mean, you're growing in work.
Yep.
When did you see like a big rise in your career? Was it just steady at that point? Like, how did you get through, you know, what happened in your 30s basically? What happened there?
So the tail end of my 20s, I actually ended up, because again, I realized I'm a speaker, I'm charismatic. And so a couple of my buddies were like rappers, you know, and we were pretty popular in Atlanta. Like, I was not a rapper, but I was kind of just out with the clubs and people knew me. I'm hanging with these guys who were performing on stages. And one day, this guy asked me to introduce my buddy to the stage on a microphone. So on the stage, I'm hey, you know, guys, come on, get hyped up. My boys on the gig ready, come up. And so there's somebody in the audience. He's like, look, I work for a local TV station, like a little local, I don't know what you would call it, like a PBS.
Oh, like public access.
Public access channel,
yeah.
right? And I do shows. I'd love for you to be one of the hosts on this show that I do called Community. It was Community Talent or something like that.
Wow.
And so he starts training and cultivating me as a host of this TV show. And so we recorded like 75 episodes, me and this other, you know, young lady named Crystal. And so now I'm on local TV in Atlanta. not the big channels,
Yeah,
but
who
like,
cares?
you know,
Yeah.
the local artists would watch the show because, you know, some of them were performing on it.
Yeah,
or,
yeah.
So they're bringing people
Their
in.
family and friends are watching in
Yeah,
their neighborhood
absolutely.
and their or network and everything.
So crazy thing, I go to a grocery store like, yo, you're the host of that show. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool,
Yeah.
you know? So that turned into me and my guys saying, hey, look, let's run out a club and start doing a weekly talent show. And so we started doing a talent show on this at this place called the Royal Peacock in Atlanta. The Royal Peacock is like a historical marker because James Brown had performed there, like Natalie Cole, Aretha Franklin, they all performed literally on the stage that I was introducing all these local acts on. So that was 28, 29 years old. So from that, a group asked me, these two young ladies who could sing their butts off, asked me to manage them. So I now am finding myself in the entertainment business without, you know, and I'm still working my job, right? But I'm, you know, just doing this entertainment thing. I manage this group called Slick and Rose. They're two females during a neo soul era, which is a pretty popular time. So it's probably now 2000, 2001. And that group was so awesome. And I had so many connections. So I would say, you know, let's go to Philly and perform at this all-female talent thing. It was called the Black Lily. And so we go up there, and they crushed. I mean, this place was standing room only. People were busting out the seams. And they get up there and do this a cappella thing with this guy doing beatbox. And the crowd erupted. So we get a contract to go to Japan. This was 2004 now.
What?
We go to Japan. We release an album in Japan called Objects in the Mirror. It goes number 12 in Japan. We're touring the Blue Note, which is a famous jazz circuit. We're in like 4 cities in Japan for like 6 months. So all expenses paid. We're selling merch. We're selling albums. So it was like my little era. Yeah. It was crazy. So I obviously quit the job. I'm doing that. And so that was a journey that a lot of people don't know about.
That is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah,
man. So you flirted with the entertainment when you didn't flirt. You were in bed with the entertainment world.
Yeah,
you were in it.
I was in it.
Managing people and going on world tours.
Yeah,
all that. What do you think you got out of that experience on a professional sense? Like, I mean, you're managing talent, so you're having to negotiate terms and you know, things that are in the dressing room and like hotels and stipends and per diems and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
So what do you think you got out of that?
Well,
professionally?
A couple of things. What I learned is that music is not just about art. It's not just about being a creative. There is a business side to it. And I guess the sad part about it is that my artists were kind of stuck in the artistry of it. You know, they loved writing, they loved performing, but I'm like, look, we got some real opportunities popping up. We literally went to Miami with so this guy named Rich Nichols, who was the manager of the Roots group, which, you know, a lot of people know the Roots, right?
The Roots, are they the Jimmy Fallon band?
Yeah, Jimmy Fallon band. This is before that all popped up. So we're literally down there with, you know, Scott Storch, all these major producers, and we're getting ready, like, they want to do songs with these girls. Well, the business side of it, all these producers are like, look, we could put you guys out there. But these were like neo soul girls. So they like to be really earthy and, you know, that kind of thing, which is great. But a couple of the producers like, look, if you could just put on a couple mini skirts, you know, this thing will blow up, man. And they're like, no, we're not going to do that. I'm like, let's get on bass. Then we can work our way around and do call our own shots. But they shot down 2 or 3 pretty big lucrative
because they didn't want to compromise or conform to the creative aspects that I guess these producers were like, if you do this, we'll get you everywhere. And they were like, no, we're good.
28-year-old me was pissed. You know, looking at it back, I'm like, man, those girls had some true values and integrity, and and I respect that. And maybe that just wasn't for us. You know what I mean? But for like a year or two, I was like really beat up about that. Like, man, we had like $1 million contracts here, opportunities, and it's a business, you know, and the creativeness of it is that they just want to do music, sing, write. They really weren't into all of that other stuff. They wanted to have an album out, but they didn't really want to get into the true business of it. And that's, I think, what a lot of people in acting and singing or whatever, they don't realize that there's a business and then there's the art of it, you know, and so you kind of got to decide which one you want to go with. So that was the one lesson. The second thing is I realized that my skill sets are transferable. So I can negotiate, I can speak, I'm charismatic, I know how to connect with people. Those are skills I can do in any industry. So let me go back to what I was doing and start really advancing in my career in the call
because all
center
those tools
management.
you can bring into a call center, you can bring into real estate, you can bring into a bank, you can bring into public speaking, educating kids, like the stuff that you do today.
Absolutely.
And so what was it like then going back to the real world? You know, and I guess mid 2000s, going back into the real world, you had fun in the entertainment world. Was that moment for you when, you know, these producers kind of offered, y'all turned down? Was that your moment of like, all right, this is the end? How did that wrap up, and how did you get back into the real world?
It was a true convergence of things that happened, right? I turned 30. So now, you know, a lot of people go through this when they hit 30. It's like, oh, what am I doing with my life? And, you know, should I be married? All my cousins and everybody at 30, 31, they got married. So I got all these people chirping out here, when are you going to settle down, Victor?
Yeah.
And I had been gone several months, so I hadn't seen my kids. So I'm like, man, my kids are getting old on me, and I'm missing really key milestones in their life. So that was going on. And I needed the stability. You know, that industry was just, you know, you have some couple big checks, and then you got several weeks where there's nothing's coming in, right? So just all of that hit me at once, and I was like, hey, I got to get it together. You know, these kids are growing. By now, I got probably my oldest was like now 9. You know what I mean? So I'm like, whoa, I got to, this has got to change, yo. So I went back to the industry. I was able to get a job really quickly. And I moved, and I really focused on the ladder and just really pushing to get up the ladder. My income increased a lot. I paid off a lot of debt during that time. And I started learning more about money and how that worked and how to get my credit fixed up, because I was in the debt collection industry now. In the call centers, I'm running call centers and collection agencies. So I'm learning about how credit works and how stuff gets reported to your credit and how there's errors on your credit report and just all of that stuff. And so I said, well, let me be my first client to get myself together and clean my credit score up. And I did that. I'm saving more money. I'm moving up through the ranks. Now I'm at assistant director levels, and I'm a director. So now I'm definite real 6 figures, right? You know, and so I just kept doing that. And now I found a young lady who I got married to. We blended our families. So I got these 3 kids of mine, and she's got 1. And so we just brought all that together. So I'm in my mid-30s now. And now I got true teenagers around me. So I got to really be a good example, not just, you know, somebody who talks it, but actually walks the walk of these kids so they can see somebody who's really a good father, a good man. And started focusing on buying a house. Like, okay, how do I position to buy a house, start building some equity? So that was kind of where really that 5-year period of time from 30 to 35 was really a growth period for me. I started thinking about long-term. Like, I had a buddy of mine who got killed or died or something, and it kind of hit me as like, wow, bro, like, you know, everybody's not guaranteed to live into their 80s and 90s. So let me do something that I can start making an impact on the world and my kids and my family. So
you mentioned real estate. Yes. You know, you were wanting to buy a house. You wanted to set a good example for your kids who are now teenagers, and you wanted to be present. What was the sort of reason to get, you know, into real estate, buying a house? Why was that a big goal for you?
So I knew one from some of those stories in the book, that Proven Path. I mean, that not my book.
That's your book. We're not plugging that one yet.
Not yet. But reading more, then my grandmothers, both maternal and paternal grandmothers were. So my mom's mom bought a house in San Francisco in 1961 for like $21,000.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So at pre-2008, when, you know, the real estate market boom took a crash, that house was worth like $1.2 million. From $21,000 to $1.2 million. Like, I don't even know the percentages on that, but it's infinite almost. I mean, and, you know, she had added on to the house and stuff, but San Francisco over the decades, it just blossomed, right? So she was always, you know, you got to get your house. You got to, you know, this is how it works. You know, this it adds value, and your debt on it goes down. So that gap just keeps widening further and further. my paternal grandmother, my dad's mom, lived in upstate New York during the 60s. And there's a whole story about my granddad. He was an alcoholic, and like he would literally get paid, and before he got home, that whole check was gone because he'd be in the bars just spending all his money. And so my grandmother at that time was like, well, I got to find a way to protect our money. So whatever money she would get, she figured out a way to buy a couple of like duplexes and quadruplexes.
No way.
Yeah, I mean, in the 60s, she divorced that guy, but a single black woman in the upstate New York in the 60s.
So had a little real estate empire in New York, just on the side.
4 quadruplexes.
She had 4 quadplexes?
Yeah, she had 4 quadplexes in the 60s. And, I mean, they did well, and people paid her rent, you know, and stuff. And I didn't learn about that till she was literally on her deathbed. And we spent, like, the last day that I spent with her, we talked for like 4 hours, and she's telling me about all this. I'm like, what? And it was around that time, I was like 35, 36, when she's like, son, you got to get you some real estate. You know, this is how it helped our family, you know. And I was able to take care of your father with this.
Weather the storms.
The storms. Like, you know, even when, you know, your grandfather was out here crapping out, we had money coming in, you know. And so that really resonated with me. And I said, well, I got to do whatever I can to get some real estate. That's awesome. You know. And so we bought our house in Atlanta. You know, it was a little bitty house, and we paid like $50,000 for it. And 2 years later, when
must have been nice paying $50,000 for a house.
Oh my God, yeah. I can't even believe it saying it. It's like that was like 2011, you know, and it was a great part of Atlanta or East Atlanta, and it wasn't like I was in the hood or anything. It was a great area, and it was $50,000. I don't know. It was just a new build, you know. So anyway,
just think about it today, like it's wild because you need like at least $500,000 now to get a house, like a decent house.
I'm so pissed off that I ended up selling that house, but 2 years later, I got a job that moved me to Austin, Texas.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so we're kind of
that's what brought you to Texas.
That's what brought me to Texas.
And it must have been you had laid so many roots down in Atlanta. So it had to have been a very good opportunity that brought you to Texas.
Absolutely.
Right?
So the company I was with ended up, the guy was again, like a payday loan type of company. And the rate that he was charging, he didn't want to charge like some of the bigger names. I won't go into some of the company names, but there was a lot of usury during that time with that industry. And he was like, I can't do that to people. I just want to help people, but I got to sustain a business. And we were a online business, so we didn't have the brick and mortar store.
So you didn't have those expenses.
He didn't have the expenses, but he also didn't have the exposure. So a lot of people were just skating off with the money that he would loan to them on the street, and they were like, I don't have to pay that back. They're on online business, right? And so ultimately, he ended up shutting that company down. But he had a 12-month window. He's like, look, you know, we're gonna sell off this portfolio. And I ended up having to be in a role where I'm calling all of our competitors, like, hey, you want to buy our portfolio? We're shutting down, blah, blah, blah. He's offering a great rate, you know, on this stuff. And so with all those calls, there was this one lady, and this lady was my angel.
Wow.
This lady, I got to say her name, Natalie. And Natalie ended up having a conversation with me for about an hour and a half on the phone about how I had, you know, created our little collection system and how I was managing the people and just how we managed that whole portfolio.
Was she one of your random calls to somebody to be like, hey, can you
buy? She was one of our competitors.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're calling her to be like, hey, we're selling a bunch of stuff. We're liquidating basically. Exactly. Do you want any of these assets?
Exactly.
Okay.
And in that conversation, she was asking all kind of stuff. Well, how does it perform? And, you know, I can intelligently speak to how we were able to recover, where we were having shortfalls, why we were selling. And so she says, well, look, give me a couple of days. I'll talk to our team. We'll get back to you. A couple of days later, she called. She said, look, we don't want the portfolio, but it sounds like you're going to need a job.
You. Yeah, we want you. Yeah.
You're going to need a job in a minute. And so they had 7 locations in Atlanta. So I was going to be the district manager. That's what I was interviewing
for all 7.
For all 7 locations. Well, the guy loved me who I interviewed with in Atlanta, but looking at my resume, I've run all these call centers, and I've had incredible numbers performance-wise, and I've developed people, and people went from agent to management.
But like you, like starting walking in,
under my direction, right? And so the guy's like, look, this guy will be a rock star, but I think he should be over our call center. Well, the call center is in Austin, Texas. So they flew me out. I interviewed, and I said, man, this is an opportunity I cannot resist. And so it was a blessing, and it was kind of a curse in a way, because now my youngest daughter through marriage is a 10th grader. She's got her first boyfriend.
Oh my gosh.
She's very emotional. My kids, one's already graduated. One is graduating that year. One's graduating the next year. So anyway, the job would move me to Austin. I would double my income. We would sell the house. So now I got proceeds from this house that actually doubled in equity in that 2-3 year window. So now we're selling it for like 90 grand.
Mm-hmm.
And so I get 35 grand selling the house. But I also have this little girl who hates me because I'm moving her to a whole new
halfway
state.
across the country.
So it was a very emotional time. My wife is in this tug of war, husband, daughter, this whole thing. I mean, there was some really intense things that happened. Threats of suicide, all that kind of stuff happened, And so it was like, but I had a conversation with my brother-in-law, who was actually the one who owned that cleaning company so many years ago.
Okay.
He said, look, man, I know it's tough, but this is a critical stage for you. You'll either stay here and probably resent your family for not making the move, or you can make the move, put your family in a better position, and you guys work through all of that. And I opted for that latter decision to move us. And I got to say, looking back at it, it was probably the best decision I made in my professional and personal life to make the move to Texas, with all that going on. And me and that daughter, we're close. We're great. She's got the grandson.
Oh, cool.
And so it just, everybody had to kind of evolve through that. And that year was tough. It helped that I was making much more money.
Oh, yeah, because money solves a lot of problems. So
it does.
Makes life a little easier.
And my other kids were graduating, and they're starting to learn their new world and who they are. And it all worked out. God is just so good. It just worked out. Yeah.
So you get to Austin, a little bit of culture. Then it is a little bit of culture shock, right? From leaving Atlanta.
Austin is such a fun place, though. Yeah. I'm a very health conscious person. Austin.
So you were
very
happy
big
there.
into
There's
that.
Whole Foods in every corner.
Yeah, and it's all these
walking
lakes and water,
Lake Travis,
and honestly, my youngest daughter actually stayed back through the end of the school year with my parents. So she's actually happy because she got to kind of finish out that year.
Not suddenly get plucked out. She got to have some closure there. And
and so for 4 or 5 months, me and my wife were like empty nesters in a new city with more money.
Oh, so you're meeting people, you're going out, you're getting nice dinners, you're out hitting the town.
He knows the plan for you, and we just followed that, and we met some great people, and I'm professionally, I'm advancing at the highest level of my career.
Wow.
And I got introduced in that time to real estate investing. I'm just, again, always expanding, looking for ways to grow. And I started listening to these radio shows instead of crap hip hop. Instead of listening to Tupac on the way home, I'm starting to listen to like radio shows about money and stuff. And this guy, Jeff Ward's show, I remember in Austin, and he had this commercial came on like, would you like to become a millionaire in 5 years by investing in rental properties? And, of course, I didn't believe that, but I was like, at least got to go to this little seminar.
Yeah.
Right,
at least see if it's real. And exactly.
90 days later, we bought our first rental property.
Wow.
Yeah. It was a crazy journey, man. It really was.
Wow. So you had your house, you had an investment property, you're in Austin in 2011, 2012, in there somewhere.
2013, right? At the end of 2013, I got the job. 2014 is when, we kind of have that empty nester time. And it was actually 2015 when we bought that house. So it was a year later, yes.
All right.
Yeah.
So then how'd you get from Austin to Dallas?
So Natalie, who ended up being the reason I got the job and moving to Austin. So the funny thing, she loses her job at that company maybe within a year. She gets pregnant during that time, and while she's out on maternity leave or, just on this time to have this baby, she gets her real estate license. So she sells us our first dream home in the Austin area in Kyle, Texas. So that was her second blessing for me. So that was around this time, spring of 2016, we buy our first beautiful, beautiful home down in Texas. And so she was our agent. And then she, 6 months later, moves to Dallas with another company during the same industry, right? And so probably 9 months in, so now we're 2017, she just randomly reaches out to me. It's like, There's this great opportunity for you in Dallas. You will be so perfect for it. I mean, this company needs you bad. And I'm like, you just sold me a house. What are you talking about? It's like, I'm like, nah, we're good. We're just kind of chilling, man. Our youngest daughter had gone off to college, back to Georgia. She thought she wanted to be back in Georgia, so she went to college there, Albany State. And we're back in this empty nester in this beautiful home. And it was just kind of one Saturday afternoon. It was a beautiful day. And I don't know, I was just like, is this it? Is this kind of just it? I just bought my house. It's just me and my wife.
Now you just sit here forever, right?
Yeah, we just sit here and do this for the next 50 years. Is that the plan? And I said, let me just see what this opportunity would look like. And I text her back. She said, well, we didn't have a job for you. We were going to create something for you because you're that good. We just wanted to get you in here, and I think you should be here. So a couple months later, they've crafted this role for me. We drive up. So there was a side caveat to that.
Mm-hmm.
Austin was beautiful. We loved it. But my wife could not find places to get her hair done. She's a black woman, and there were not black stylists out there. And as small of a thing as that seems, that's kind of a lifestyle thing. Like somebody, her confidence was lower because she couldn't get her hair done the way she wanted to, and I could see her not being happy, and it was really a thing. You know what I mean? And so we drove up to Dallas one weekend. It's a little bit more culture, more diversity. She got her hair done one weekend, and, whatever.
She's radiating after that, right?
She's radiating. Yeah. I'm like, well, damn, this might be something.
It might be worth it just for that.
Right. And
that's
so
awesome.
We got 2 rental properties now, one in San Antonio, I know one of your favorite places.
Yep.
And we decided, we're just going to rent out this house that we have in Kyle.
Oh, the Kyle house,
Yeah, and I took a job that gave me another boost in income, and so here we are in Dallas now.
Been here
by
since
mid 2017. We ended up buying a place that I'm still living in now. We actually bought a townhouse, and we just renovated it and everything, and so that's the house that we live in now. But we've got rental properties and other stuff going on now, and I wrote a book and all that stuff.
So that's what got you up here, and you kind of, it's cool though because it seems like you've taken from Oakland to Atlanta to Austin to Dallas. It seems like you've fast forwarded how long it takes for you to kind of establish yourself in a new environment.
Exactly.
Right. I mean, as I know, for me as a business owner, that's been, when I've niched down, it's kind of like I have to start all over again. When you niche down to a specific industry, but you have the benefits of all the mistakes you've made, the positive things you've had, so that, back then it would have taken me 3 years to kind of figure my way out around working with realtors, for example.
Right.
It took me about 6 months.
See?
And it's because of all the mess ups and all the journey and all that. So it just seems like with you too, moving to different cities, you kind of figured it out faster with each new opportunity that you had to kind of get caught up and ahead and not being behind so much,
I'm a true believer that every single thing you go through is building you to the next level of yourself, right? And but you got to have that mindset that those obstacles are actually stepping stones for you to step on to elevate yourself. But you have to have that mentality. You can't look at something that is a decline or a rejection as, man, crap, I suck and life is terrible.
Yeah.
No, that's part of the journey. It's part of the strengthening of you, of mentally, and helping you to build that tenacity so you can go forward. And like you said, even with the realtors or whatever, you've dealt with them in the past in some capacity, maybe not as a niche, but you realize that, I know how to deal with this. It's nothing, And so I've taken that mindset, and now you mentioned about my youth program. I'm able to take 60 boys here in Carrollton at 2 different middle schools and teach them how to hopefully develop that mentality earlier in life instead of being in your 30s before you figure out how to do that,
Yeah.
And so, and life will still hit them in the head. They'll go through those adversities, but they should see it as, okay, everything's fine. What can I take from this?
Yeah.
What do I need to do to develop myself? What are the areas that I need to work on so that I can move forward in life in a positive direction? So that's what it's about.
Something I admired a lot about you, and it's a difficult conversation to have, is that you don't seem like you're a victim of your circumstances in any way. And I know you have a lot to say about that because we've talked about it before. But how are you able to instill in in youth who, potentially they're low income or they don't have a dad, an active dad, or even an active mom. You've experienced all those things. You've lived those things. But how are you able to kind of get across to so many middle school, high school kids? It'd be different, like if I walk in, for example, and I may single, like I grew up with two parents. Parents did very well.
Yeah.
And so it's like I can't relate to people that way.
For sure.
How do you find that you're able to relate to to kids that are perhaps going through what you went through in life?
Yeah.
But how do you get them to realize that they're not victims, but that these are all opportunities to grow?
For sure.
How do you get that? How do you get that
I think
mentality?
It's important to be vulnerable, to accept your own shortcomings and put it out there. Like, don't be so egotistical, like, oh, I'm perfect and I'm, pristine. There's nothing that ever happened bad to me. Like, I went through some crap. Like, I went through tons, man.
You cleaned toilets at Hooters. I
cleaned toilets at Hooters. I slept under my first baby mama's bed for 3 or 4 nights. Just there was so many things that I'm like, stomach growling like crazy at times, and it's just be okay sharing your story, because when they see you walk in, like, part of my whole thing is that I want to show them I'm a professional black man out here doing great things, but I don't want you to miss the fact that I was not always that.
Yeah, that's the surface what you're showing,
exactly.
But then what you do is you show them like the depth, the vertical, like the that iceberg. You're showing everything else that you don't see now because you have real estate, you work at the bank, you're connected with a lot of people, you're doing some great things, but it wasn't always like that, right?
But you've got to be willing to share that, be vulnerable about it. Don't feel like, you're embarrassing yourself. It's part of the life. It's part of the journey. And a lot of people have gone through it. They just won't tell you about it, right? And then the other part of it is being somebody who allows them to share what they're going through. Like, so tell me how you feel about that. You know, they want to be heard. They want to be seen. And, we all want to have a moment to shine, and so give them their opportunity to share what they're good at. Even if it's something you think is stupid, like, just give them a chance to just express that. That's all they want to have. Okay, I like what you did there. Maybe let's think about another idea that you might be able to use that same talent to do this with. You know what I mean? And it's like,
because then you say, like, I went and I managed these singers and, I did that and I was able to take things from there here, or even cleaning toilets at Hooters that taught you this, and this that you brought to the call centers.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's so exactly
that
how it works.
Part of it and the consistency. I got a couple guys who help me with the program that are aspiring speakers, right? And so I want to help them. And so one of the ways I'm helping them is like, look, you just got to show up. You got to be here with me to see what I'm doing, right? And so with that, we're able to talk about how, look, the biggest thing that you got to be able to do is just go through these mistakes, develop yourself, and then let's show these kids how they can do something great with themselves.
Wow.
Right? Let's just keep showing up. And sometimes I don't always even have I have a curriculum, but some days I'm like, I got to deviate from that curriculum. The energy is different today.
Yeah.
And I'm able to
gotta call an audible and just
audible. It's like, okay, let's do something else. And I think for some of these kids, just the fact that we just keep showing up, it means a lot to them. Now, they call me Mr. Victor. So now it's Mr. Victor. Hey, I got an A on my test last week. You'd be surprised at that. What? We're high-fiving and giving them little hugs, and I don't know what that home life is like. So maybe that's all they're going to get. That's the only love they're going to get for that week. And so, sometimes I get more inspired by that than me pouring into them. It's like, God, man, God is really doing something here. He's using me as a vessel for these kids. And somebody did it for me even before my move to Atlanta. And I see myself channeling, Dr. Marshall, who was my mentor at 16, 15 years
in
old.
Oakland?
He's in San Francisco.
Wow.
This guy, he sent more than 1,000 kids to college, boys and girls. Over the years, he's gotten a Presidential Medal of Honor. I mean, this guy for 30 plus years has impacted underserved communities, and I don't know what the journey will be for me. I know I got 60 boys right now that look up to me to help them. And then we do our summer program that you've been a part of. Thank you for that. That we do with boys and girls, right? And so I'm just following the path that God laid for me. And I'm hoping that somebody will look back and say, you know what? that Mr. Victor made a difference in my life. You know what I mean? And, that's all I can ask for.
Wow.
Yeah. It's good stuff.
That's awesome. Well, that's a great ending. I think we're going to wrap it up right there.
Yes,
Thank you so much. This is great.